a great moment of celebration. We are also part of it, Samspra Academy. So we want to acknowledge and celebrate the occasion of the Sree Ram mandir consecration in Ayodhya. So in connection with that, we'll be having some cultural performances. The theme is Lord Sree Rama. Before we begin, I invite Mr. Raja to talk something about this occasion as well.
Thank you for inviting me to talk. I was asked to talk about 1 hour ago. So I decided to actually one important thing is this is actually the consecration of the Ram mandir, but in fact it is actually a consecration of Prana Prathistha of the new Ayodhya. There is always a Ram mandir. Right? So what I wanted to do is give a little historical perspective and maybe a little political tinge in that historical perspective. Just like in Ram's life, his life was very political, like at the end of the day, and it was a lot of struggle. So I think it is important to understand that the Ram Mandir also reflects Ram's life. It also went through a lot of struggle, and eventually there was time for good over evil. So just like in Ram's life itself, there was time for good over evil. So that parallel is very important to understand. So let me give a historical perspective here. So basically, since antiquity, there has always been a temple there. Right? So there is a little, in Ayodhya, there is a little hill called the Ram Koti. Right? So basically, it's Ram Fortress. Right? So the Ram Koti hill, on which there stood a mandir that was built in antiquity. We don't know when. Right? Probably it was 3,000 years old, 4,000 years old, 5,000 years old. So we don't know exact date when it was built. But there has always been one, and that is actually known through archaeological evidence. Right? So which eventually got proven in court. So as we know, we went through a very, when I say we, India went through a very tumultuous history of different kinds of invaders. Right? Starting with the most brutal kinds of invaders that came in around the 12th or maybe even the 11th century, right? Who formed the Delhi Sultanate, and that was followed by the Mughals, who actually started their empire in around 1500. So the Delhi Sultanate lasted for about 300 years. The Mughals actually started their empire by beating the Delhi Sultanate, and one of the things that they did with real vigor was to destroy temples. Right? So in fact, it was their mission number one: destroy temples, and often what they did was to put another structure on top of it. And we know what these structures are. Right? So it is not necessarily a place of worship for those people who were the victors in that. It was just a statement to say that we are superior to you, and hence we actually put a structure on. Right? We destroy your structure, and we put another structure on top of that. So let us all understand this sort of injustice that was meted to our civilizational background. Right? So that is very important to understand. Maybe the young people don't know. This is just a celebration, just like any other celebration. But this is not another celebration. This is a very important event, very civilizationally important hallmark event, I would actually call it. So right around 1526 is when Babur took the throne in Delhi, and he established the Mughal Empire. He was a lead king, right? The first Mughal who actually established the Mughal Empire, followed by others, right? And Aurangzeb being another very luminary Mughal emperor, right? So who did lots of great things in his life. So anyway, Babur, and right, as we know in Hindi, there's a word called barbarta. I'm sure people who know Hindi, they know the word barbarta. Barbarta means brutality, right? Injustice, it's brutality. So that's where the word comes from the word Babur. So Babur actually started his campaign of destroying temples all across North India. And of course, one of the primary temples was the Ram Koti temple that he destroyed and razed to the ground. And that was somewhere in the 1526, 1527 time frame, right after he came to power. And his general, I think his name was Mir Beg or something like that. He actually built this other structure that they called the Babri Masjid. In fact, ironically, the Babri Masjid has a name. It was called Masjid-e-Janmasthan. So, do you see the irony here? So they built this masjid and they called it Masjid-e-Janmasthan. Whose Janmasthan? Babur's Janmasthan? So they also acknowledged by just naming it that way that in fact there was a Janmasthan. This is the Janmasthan. Right? So the Babri Masjid was built, and from day one when it was built, the Hindus struggled against it. Right? So whatever history books are written actually are actually often not accurate, but from day one there has been struggles, right? So there has been violence, struggle to actually bring down this structure, what they call the Masjid-e-Janmasthan, right? Or Babri Masjid, as more well-known colloquially. So there has been evidence of about almost 75 violent struggles that have happened in this site. It is not just one event that happened in 1992, but preceding that there have been actually 75 different events that have been happening for a very long time. So the British actually realized that there is this thing going on where Hindus want to get into this structure and offer prayers and so on and to their deities, and they were always being pushed back. So there's a struggle. So right around I think it was 1858 that the British said we are locking these premises. Right? Nobody can come here to these premises. So the entire premises in Ayodhya was locked off, and nobody will come there. Right? So fundamentally, nobody prayed there, including the Babar and Samspra Academy. Right? They never prayed there. It was never used as a masjid. It was never used as a masjid. So that is a very important point to understand. Right? So it was never used as a masjid. But we were prevented, we meaning the Hindus were prevented from offering prayers because ultimately it was actually a temple. It is a temple. It was a Ramkoti temple. So this was blocked off. So right around after independence, like 1947, in 1949, what happened was Hindus entered this structure. They broke the locks of what was blocked off. They broke the locks and they put two idols there, one a Ram idol and a Sita idol. Okay, so that was the Ram Lala and the Sita, the old Ram Lala and the Sita idols that were put there. So that was in 1949. And immediately after that was done, after the Hindus went in to offer prayers, the government of India, actually, in its great wisdom, basically decided to lock it up again and prevent anybody from going into the temple and offering prayers. So since then there has been a lot of struggles, right? many struggles that have gone on. And right around the 1980s is when it started becoming organized. Right? So not just a struggle here, struggle there, some violent events here and there, but in 1980 is when the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, the Bajrang Dal, right? And these are sort of the affiliates of RSS. They came in actually, they really organized themselves and they actually took this struggle on, right, to actually bring the structure down and build a temple. So there are a lot of political events that happen in between. So events of appeasement, and so on. And Rajiv Gandhi, for whatever his wisdom, in his wisdom, he decided to open the locks of the temple to allow the Hindus to go in and pray. And the reason actually he did that was because there was a Shah Banu case. So he struck down the Shah Banu case to appease the Muslims. And now to appease the Hindus, actually he broke the lock. He not broke the lock, he opened the lock, allowed them to go offer prayers. So they would actually, the Hindus, right from the 1980s, they would actually 85, 86 time frame, there were Hindus that were going and offering prayers there. So this was not enough, obviously, right? So you can't have these ugly looking structures, right? And then you go and offer a little prayer there, right? If you have a little murti that you put there. So that is obviously not enough. The injustice was never corrected. So in 1992, the tempo of this movement took a form where about 150,000 car sevaks, right? So basically from all over India, right? So not just from that area, but from people from Bombay, people from all kinds of places actually converged on that one location to demand that they actually be allowed to build a temple there. And this obviously, that demand, with 150,000 people, you can't control this. I mean, it's actually not a crowd. It's a huge, it's a huge city, right? That is converging on a location, one little location, like the Janmasthan in Ramkoti. So what happened was, we know what happened, what the political violence that took place, right? They were called the car sevaks. The car sevaks were shot upon. In fact, hundreds of car sevaks died on the spot. Following that, there was violence where thousands of people actually died all across India. Right? So let us not forget that history also. So it's a history of constant struggle. Now what happened was the car savaks eventually broke through the barricades and they basically brought down the mosque, the structure, right? The so-called mosque. Right? They brought it down, and in fact they brought it down one brick at a time. So all they had was little chisels, their little hands, They climbed up the structure. In fact, there are a lot of videos that you can see on YouTube where they brought down the mosque one brick at a time. Right? So they threw the bricks, they touched. In fact, they brought down all three of the domes. Right? So then came the point where it was undeniable. Right? So 150,000 car savaks ascending in one place or descending down in one place and asserting themselves became a wake-up call. So this was followed obviously by different lawsuits. In fact, there were three parties to the lawsuit. There was Nirmohi Akhada, which was a Hindu son. There was the other Hindu entity that wanted to build a temple, and then of course the Muslim board, so that wanted to actually build a mosque. So eventually in 2010, the Allahabad High Court, the Prayagraj High Court, which doesn't want to call itself Prayagraj but calls itself Allahabad. Right? So the Allahabad High Court gave a decision that you can build a temple on 1/3 of the land. The other 1/3 will go to build a mosque in that same spot. So imagine the situation. You have a temple and then there's a wall and there's a mosque and there's a Nirmohi Akhada gets a third of the thing. So obviously that is actually a very bad decision, right? And nobody wanted it. So all three parties that actually got this land went back to the court, the Supreme Court, and they decided to actually fight this case. And eventually in 2019, is when the Supreme Court decided to give this entire land to the Ram Janmabhoomi Tirth Sthan, right? So that's basically the organization that's building the temple. So this is the event, right? So you have to understand, from 1530, right? We are now almost more than 500 years, almost 500 years now. Right? So this is a struggle that has gone on for 500 years. And is getting, finally, the decision came in 2019, but 2019 and then 2024 is when this temple is getting built. And you have to also understand, in this intervening 4 or 5 years, there have been lots of people who are actually been completely against this process. It's quite amazing. Right? You just look at news, how many people are against the Ram temple. Right? So this is again continuing to be a struggle. And we are here today where we have a temple. So today, as of now, it's 5 p.m., 5 a.m. in India, maybe 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in India. The temple event is going to start, so we'll have a pratishtha of the new idol. So actually, the idol that is going to be put there is a new idol, right? It was built, it was actually sculpted by somebody from Karnataka, a person called Yogiraj. Yogiraj. So he is going to do his idol is going to be there. The old idols are also going to be there. Right? So those are old idols. At some point, they must have done a Prana Prathistha. So that exists, but this new idol is what Prana Prathistha is what's being done. And of course, we have a new temple, right? And the entire area belongs to this temple. So that is a great victory. So again, there is a parallel between Ram's life, where he had to go to Banavas for 14 years, and Ram's temple had to go Banavas for 500 years. Right? So we are back. Right? So we are actually now trying for of good over evil. Just like in Ram's life, triumph of good over evil. Okay, with that, I will actually stop, but I will actually make one more note. While this celebration is good, right, today in India, and here and everywhere else in the world, I guess, but it is important to understand that the job is not finished. We have 2 others to go, right, the Krishna Janmabhoomi and the Kashi, 2 more to go, and 40,000 other temples that were destroyed. Right? Now, the question is, why is all this important? Why is the building a temple important? Right? So we live in a modern world. Why is all this important? The important point here is that if you do not identify yourself with a certain cultural heritage, in fact, we have the longest cultural heritage. If you do not identify yourself with your own cultural heritage, you will never make progress. That economic progress, you will not be able to build wealth. You will not make social progress. You will not make you will not make any progress. So as a society, you will actually just be a shadow of some other civilization. Right? So we can't afford to be a shadow of the Western civilization. We are our own civilization. Right? So it is important to identify ourselves with that civilization because it is ours in order to go to the future. Right? So if you don't do that, and there are many examples all over the world where civilizations are not adhered to, where people don't identify themselves with the civilization and they are just confused. Right? One great example is a country just next to us. Right? They don't identify themselves with their own civilization. In fact, they have identified themselves with the civilization out in some desert somewhere, right? And they never make progress. This is always going to be downhill. The Western world, right, which is Anglo-Saxon, Judeo-Christian civilization, has very strongly identifies itself with that civilization, and hence the progress that they have made. Right? The wealth that they have been able to accumulate is a result of that. Right? Is a result of their identifying with themselves with their own civilizations, and that's what we have to do. There. And that's why it's different, right? So this may seem not compatible. People will say it's not compatible with the modern age. It is 100% compatible with the modern age, right? And we have to recognize that, and hence the celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Sree Rama, for the insightful words.